What's up, nerds? Welcome back. You know what? I'm not going to do the whole introduction. I always put my name like right here, and you know what this channel is. So, anyway, today we're going to be talking about the ongoing train wreck that began with a train wreck United States of Captain America number 2. All right, so if you will remember, this United States of Captain America is basically just like the tokenized versions of Captain America that for some reason we're just displaying for whatever reason. So, with each issue, apparently we're going to start out with Steve just kind of like talking about some aspect of America. And so this time they happen to be in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So right now he's obviously talking about the Civil War. And just to let y'all know, I've actually been there. I don't know if anybody happens to live around this area or has been there. I've been to Gettysburg when I was younger. The funny thing is, I remember it being like around like some of the gift shops and stuff like that stuff. I remember when we went to the battlefield itself, I stayed in the car because we're not going to get into like all of the like spiritual type of shit or whatever, but for whatever reason, I just felt very, I don't want to say overwhelmed. I felt tired. Like I just felt like I wanted to lie down. You know what I mean? So that's what I ended up doing. I stayed in the vehicle. My parents and my brother and I think my little sister, they all got out and they went and like looked at the battlefield and everything. I stayed in the car because I just felt like tired. I was just overwhelmed for whatever reason. And that was before we went to the gift shop. So that's why I'm like, I don't know why I felt so tired all of a sudden, but that's what happened. Anyway, he's talking about it. He says, here's a funny story. Spoiler alert, it's not going to be that funny. So he says, I was a Cub Scout. This would have been 28 or so. Another funny story. I used to be a Cub Scout, but I barely remember it because it wasn't for very long. So he says, it must have been 28 or so. We came and did a tour here. Joshua Chamberlain, Little Round Top, Pickett's Big Screw Up, all that. 6 hours on a rickety school bus. Thing had more in common with horse-drawn carriages than cars today. I was riveted by all this history. Riveted. But I was also a 10-year-old kid, which meant eventually I had to pee. Man, oh man, by the time we were in the peach orchard, I felt like my back teeth were underwater. I was too scared to interrupt the guide, too worried to bother my teacher, who, by the way, was acting like he'd actually fought in the battle. I finally decided to sneak off, just, take care of it without anyone noticing. One question I do have there is, like, he said this was in 28 when he did this, and the Civil War was in the 1860s, so, I mean, how old was your teacher? Because who knows, maybe he was a kid at that time, or maybe he actually did, like, depending on how old he was, maybe he actually did fight it. I don't know. But I mean, it would be plausible. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, to them, it was like 60 years ago. So to us, it's like looking back at the 60s. Like, it's not that long ago. We know people who were alive during the 60s. You know what I mean? But anyway, he says, the plan was to deal with it, then catch up fast. But just like it was for Johnny Reb, it was a mistake to go into that wheat field. So all of a sudden, I guess I don't even know, a policeman, some form of Mountie. I don't think they have these kind of like park guards at Gettysburg. I don't remember that being a thing. Maybe back in the 20s they did. But anyway, he comes up on his horse and says, whoa there, this is hallowed ground, son. Latrines are yonder, boy. And then he like points it out to him or whatever. So Steve runs off, and I guess that was supposed to be the funny part, that because he's talking about how he almost peed on Gettysburg or whatever. I mean, Ozzy peed on the Alamo. So that's why he's not allowed back in San Antonio. If you didn't know that, it's a funny story, but it is true. Anyway, he says, maybe it's not as funny as I remember. I do hope I've paid back that debt. The damage we did to one another here. Lately, I've been wondering if we ever really came back from it. So all of a sudden he sees like Falcon coming up. So he goes and he's talking about like there was another cap attack 2 days ago near Harrisburg. A woman was arrested for busting up a new main line that was going to bring fresh water into town. So he meets up with Sam and then he's saying like, gotta admit, still think you wear it best, Sam. Okay. I'm sorry, do you want to be excused? Do you want to give him a blowy real quick? You want to blow out your kneecaps real quick before we continue? Or can we go on? Anyway, he says that, and then Sam says, two caps are always better than one. I'm not so sure about that this time, Steve says. And so, anyway, he comes and he's. Sam is telling him, like, you said you were going to bring your shield because apparently everybody's bringing their shields now. So you can see that Sam's is what? Just a black shield with a white star on it. So he's got that. And then Steve is saying, I did. It's just, well, I was wondering if we should ditch the uniforms entirely with all this imposter crud. Now, if you're wondering where is Steve's shield, you should already know which one it is. I do actually happen to like the like hard light shield. I think it looks cool, but for a futuristic Captain America, you know what I mean? Having him have it here, it doesn't really feel right, but whatever. That's the one he has. Anyway, he starts telling him, this woman, Nichelle Wright, they're charging her with domestic terrorism. And Sam says, and yet she was dressed like you. Kind of ironic. So he says, not really, since I've also been charged with domestic terrorism in the past. So, of course, in the continued stripping down of Captain America, we have to bring up, like, oh yeah, by the way, remember Civil War? When Steve was at odds with the U.S. government and they declared him public enemy number one? So he's going on about all of this. And then, of course, there's also like the whole secret invasion shit, like when he came out as Hydra and all that. So, I mean, we're just referencing every possible way that Steve has been handled poorly. And then he says, but she also calls herself Captain America. Really makes me feel weird. And then Sam says, that also what you say when I'm not in the room? Okay, we went from like being friends to all of a sudden you just like assuming he's talking shit about you all the time. So he says, you don't want to hear the things I say about you when you're not in the room. So I guess that was an attempt at levity, them trying to introduce a little bit of whimsy to kind of lighten the mood. And so he says, she definitely has more in common with that kid Aaron from the train than us or your lookalike. You think she's part of this captain's network? And he says, likely. I also want to know what really happened and why she's still alive. So Sam says, maybe that assassin lady isn't out to kill these folks, just set them up. So he's like asking him, hey, how'd you even get your bike out here? This is as close as the park ranger would let me get. And then, he has to say, well, I have a special in with the park rangers. And Sam was like, yeah, of course you do. And then Steve has to do this thing where he says, that reminds me, no hot rodding back there. People are already more suspicious of Captain America than they should be. And then Sam's like, you mean like this? And he kind of busts a little bit of a wheelie a little bit. And he says, yep, I think that's a textbook example, Sam. Thank you. Oh, okay. That was all so awkward. And like him calling it hot rodding, like, for one thing, why would Sam be doing that? Like, why? I get it. Sam is a fun person, but if they're on a mission and they're actually going somewhere, is he really just going to be doing this dumb shit just for the hell of it? Like, you know what I mean? He flies planes and he can literally fly himself. So, I mean, I don't really think doing this like with whatever. I'm complaining about the wrong part. So Steve is telling him, in addition to talking to Nichelle, I want to get a look at this busted pipeline, see how it was damaged. So Sam is asking him, what if the local cops won't let us talk to her? And then that's where Steve says, I don't know, maybe we break some rules. So they go over and they're looking at like the damage or whatever, and they're saying like, damn, it is pretty bad and everything. And he says, good gosh, I didn't realize it was this bad. And Sam says, so many blocks are flooded. Dozens are going to be temporarily homeless because of this. So we see some of the people that are coming up, and it's like, of course, a white man and a black woman. Can you guess which sides they're taking? Can you guess which side the white guy is on? Can you guess which side the black woman is on? Can you guess what they're saying? Did you just guess correctly? I'm sure you did, so we'll move on. So Steve says, this had to be our speedy cap imposter. Rapid hits made with my shield. It's because they're like looking at the damage or whatever. And so he like takes Sam's shield to kind of like compare, since they're basically like the same dimensions, I'm assuming. And then like that's how he comes to that. And then Sam says, lady says Nichelle's all about cleaning up water. She cares about this pipe. So Steve says that then our bad guys knew how to draw her out. That does seem to be the case, doesn't it? And then Sam says, Misty Knight made it for him. Or because he asked him, like, how do you get the shield? And he says, Misty Knight made it for me. Anyway, I just dug the look, because it's, I guess, black with a white star. It does look pretty clean. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, it's kind of plain, Like, it's just a white star and a black shield. like it's clean, but it's boring. So anyway, he's going on. He says, "Did you seriously not have any extras lying around?" And Steve says, "Extra what?" And he's like, "AAA batteries and flour tortillas. Shield, Steve." And that's where he finally shows him, like, "Oh no, yeah, I have my shield. I have the one that Tony made for me, the hard light projection shield." So, like I said, I do like it. Like I've always liked that look, but for a futuristic Cap, like where it would make more sense, because this Captain America, especially having him being from like a time from before any of that type of technology would have even been dreamt of, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure it just doesn't fit him. That's how I feel about it. But a futuristic Cap, like I think they had it in what, Guardians 3001 or something like that. Like, if you're gonna put it in the future, then I'm more willing to accept it. But putting it here, it feels wrong. Anyway, so he's talking about it. He's like, "I don't get it." And Sam says, "Which part?" So he says, "All of it. The feds still want to question our guy, Aaron, about the train crash, even though I vouched for him. They still think he's involved. Likewise, Nichelle's been charged for destroying the pipe. But our cap hunter took a shot at Aaron. She wanted him dead. So Sam says, then she let Nichelle live and get arrested. So Steve finishes that by saying, "The only thing I'm really clear on is they want the country to hate anyone calling themselves Captain America." So right at that moment, all of a sudden that other Captain America comes just zooming through them, and he says to them, "That's the idea, and that hate's just going to keep growing and growing and growing." So he just like takes off running again, or he goes on to fight with them a little bit, and he tries to use Steve's shield against him, but he uses the hard light one to kind of like block the attack. And he says, "Pretty brave, thinking you could take on the two of us alone when all you've got is fancy footwork." So as we can see, like Sam tried to throw his shield at him, but it just landed right here. So unfortunately, not fast enough, I guess. And then he says, "And this, don't forget this. This was a really great gift you got me. Thanks, Cap." And so, like, he hits him with the shield. And then Sam comes up and just manages to take the shield from him. And it says, "Damn, your mouth moves as fast as the rest of you." But right at that moment, he gets shot by yet another person with a patriotic theme. And we've seen a picture of this person before, but we haven't actually seen her full on before, other than that time on the bridge when she was really just cloaked in shadow. So this time we finally see her. And she says, "The next shot severs your spinal cord between the C1 and C2 vertebrae." So Steve is getting him up. And this is where I was saying, like, this is the dumber part about, like, the whole shield situation. He gets it wet, and it stops working because it's wet. And he even says, "Hey, Tony, it ever occurred to you an electric shield might need to be waterproof?" Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would have, because Tony Stark has literal suits of armor that are designed for going underwater. Even his normal suits are at least a little bit waterproof. So I'm pretty sure he would have thought at some point you would end up encountering water and would have made it waterproof, thereby making this whole scene completely irrelevant, as it should have been. But for some reason, we put this in here to kind of play on, like, oh, haha, he got wet and the shield doesn't work, because darn it, Tony just didn't think to make the bitch waterproof. Oh, God. So all of a sudden, she comes up and she says, "Halt, don't move." And he says, "Just 1 second, for crying out loud." But all of a sudden, he throws like a piece of wood at her. And then that's enough to distract her for Sam to get up. And he's asking him, like, "Are you all right?" And he says, "What the hell are those creeps still doing here 2 days later?" So the fast Captain America takes off with the assassin chick. And then from there, we see the two Captains America, I guess, go over to the house of that black lady, like for some first aid assistance or whatever. And then Steve is saying, I don't think they meant to let Nichelle get away. The police must have gotten to her first." And he's saying, like, nothing's going to happen to her, because the lady is saying, like, don't let anything happen to her, whatever. And then Sam asks, "You think they want her dead like they did Aaron?" He says, "I think they want to destroy Captain America, the people, the name, the symbol, the entire dream." So I guess they have to do that, like, while he's still around and kicking. Like, you would think they would at least try to subdue him and Sam so that they couldn't possibly try and fight against their plan. But no, instead they just broke in, stole his shield, and are now trying to, like, do this thing because they think they're going to get away with it. I don't know. Anyway, he said they go from there to, like, I guess the police station, I guess. And the guy's telling him, like, I'm sorry, guys. Sheriff says she's off limits. And Steve is saying, my friend was already shot by the same people who are out to kill Nichelle. To which Sam says, they're probably on their way right now. She's a sitting duck here. And he's like, you're welcome to fill out a report and we'll look into it ASAP. This is where it got even dumber. Holy God. So, so all of a sudden we get this literal, just obviously, blatantly racist cop come out. And he's like, more captains, terrific. And you're going to see why I'm talking like that in a second. So Sam starts by saying sheriff, but then the guy cuts him off. He's like, boys, hold on. I'm going to be straight with you. Truth is, I don't know who did what to that pipe or why. But the thing is, I don't care. So, and this is why I'm like talking like that, because as you can see his face right here, the fact that the sound appears to only be coming out of one side of his damn mouth, as though he apparently has chew in his lip. I'm assuming he probably got them chewing tobacco. He's like, this girl Wright is a thorn in our sides, never shuts up about this water crisis, stages protests, sit-ins, strikes. Now we found out she's also been the one gallivanting around at night cracking skulls in bad parts of town. Frankly, we're done with her. So Steve tells him, your thorn actually tries to make things better. He's like, and I said I don't care. We're keeping her case simple, and let's face it, she fits the profile. What even was the profile? We haven't even been told what they were looking for. So he says, what do you mean fits the profile? And of course, Sam has to pipe up and be like, I know what he means. So he says, the pipe that a lot of important people didn't want goes away now. And the police can handle the streets without a loony bird Captain America thug crawling up their asses. So Sam tells him, and all it cost was one black woman. And he says, hey, you said it, bud, not me. Oh my God. Really? This, really? Who is it that you hate more, cops or people in small towns? Or just the South? Because that seems to be what we got here. But anyway, he, for whatever reason, loses his composure and decides, oh, I'm going to go ahead and flip this cop right out the front doors because I can do that because I'm dressed as Captain America and I have the actual Captain America right next to me. So he says, you mentioned maybe breaking some rules, so I decided we should start now. And Captain America says, probably better treatment than he would have gotten from the shield thief. And then he turns to all of the other people and very threateningly says, feel free to file a report. So, okay, you want to go up and just like punch anyone up in the face too? Since you decided to come up and just throw your balls up on the table, you want to do anything? You want to shit on their front desk before you walk out the front door? Anyway, they go over to the cells, and then she's sitting in there talking to like the guard. I guess that's just like watching her, and they're doing this old timey like Wild West type of shit where he's literally just sitting there in a chair, and then like literally just right next to the cell, I guess, doing nothing but staring at the wall. And then she says, sounds like Andy Griffith ran into some trouble out there. You want to check on that, Deputy Fife? See, no, that wasn't funny to me. See, I understood that reference because, like, I remember very vaguely Andy Griffith reruns. But again, to whom are you trying to appeal when you throw in references like that? Like, they say that they aren't writing these books for, like, the old comic book fans or whatever, but then they throw in references like that, and you're expecting what, a Gen Zer to understand that? Who are you expecting to understand that other than the fans that y'all claim to hate and don't want reading comics, and yet you throw in references that only they would understand? And me, because I happen to like have an appreciation for classic entertainment and, you know, pop culture and shit like that. But anyway, the cop gets up and says, don't say a word, and then he at first tells him to freeze, but then he realizes who it is. So he puts his gun away, and he's saying, like, Cap, she's all yours. I knew this wasn't right. And then Steve says, sorry about your boss, but he says, I'm not. He's got a smart mouth and a lot of dumb ideas. Okay, well, you don't even know what happened to him yet, because as we established, all you heard was a commotion, then they come running in, and now you're like, yeah, I'm not sorry about what happened to him. Well, you don't even know what happened to him, because no one told you, and you didn't see it. So I mean, why are you over here acting like, he got his comeuppance? For all you know, he just got stabbed in the face. And these two Captains America are like, who knows, shapeshifters or something. But anyway, Steve goes up to the cell and he says, "You must be Nichelle." She says, "Funny, they said I couldn't have visitors." And Sam says, "We got to get you out of here." But she says, "Sounds like you guys don't think I'll get a fair trial." So Steve pulls her like the door off the damn cell. And he says, "It's more than that. You're in imminent danger." So she says, "The last time that was true, I tangled with a guy dressed like you." And then like they offer to take her with them to like make sure she's safe. And she's like, "Nah, I got other things to go do." Cause like, yeah, I know it's dangerous, but it's literally like always dangerous for people like me. So she's like, "No offense, but you boys can go ahead with your grand crusade. I've got work to do. That's how the captains do their thing. We fight on the ground, not in the clouds." Like, oh, okay. All right, sure. And then she says, or they're coming out, and the one I guess that he threw through the damn window, he's up again, and he's like, "Right, like you three are just gonna walk out of here." So she's like, "Hold up," and then she sees this car, and I guess nobody else noticed it but her. She notices this car pulling up, and then she's like, "Get down!" And then she saves the racist cop and shit. And then like they start flying, just full on blasting on them with like a vehicle mounted submachine gun. And then she's like, "Okay, so you guys weren't kidding. Did you think that Captain America showed up in person to lie to you?" Anyway, he starts like going at it because he has the hard light shield, so obviously he has the advantage here. So he manages to get up to the thing, and then when he does, he's saying like, "That's it? That it? A few hours ago, you were gonna sever my friend's spine, C1 and C2 and whatnot. Come on, I know you got more ammo in there somewhere, more things that go bang. I'm right here." So she says, "I refuse to make you a martyr, Stephen Rogers. Nothing unifies a people and a country more than a martyr." But he says, "Then why have the motor mouth in my duds take my shield? Why target these other captains?" But she says, "It's your symbol that will be broken, and this group of nobodies with tin shields, paltry stripes, faded stars, no one knows them or trusts them. They're trash." That one we can absolutely agree on. They're absolutely trash. But then she says, "Tools we'll use to tarnish your name before I kill them." And he's like, "Yeah, well, Nichelle is walking out of here with us tonight, safe and sound, unless you want to go another few rounds." And then apparently, instead of having more ammo, she had a flamethrower on the bitch. So she starts using that at him. And then he says, "And here I didn't bring anything to barbecue." But then she takes off and shit. And then the other people come running up to assist him. And he says, "Lady's got a Jerry accent. They want to take out the captains. We've got to stop this." A Jerry accent? Did you just use like a term for a German? Is that okay now? Are we doing that? We can use terms like, epithets, but they have to be directed specifically at only Germans, I guess. Like calling them Jerry. If I call an Italian a Mick, is everyone gonna be okay with that too? Anyway, the girl Nichelle says, "Listen, I'm not on board with the whole we thing." And he says, "I thought you called yourself Captain America." And this is where she says, "So did Isaiah Bradley, and look at how y'all treated him." Well, first of all, Captain America, usually in like most of these stories, you didn't even know who he was. Like that's how they painted it in like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like he didn't really know what was going on with all the Isaiah Bradley shit. So I mean, she's over here throwing that shit at him. And then Sam is the one who's trying to calm her down and be like, "Hey now." And then this other cop says we got to put an APB out of the truck because they're going to try to look for them. But she says the captains take the idea of you and make it real for the people you don't have time to think about. That's what Isaiah did. That's what I do. And Sam says we don't ignore anybody, but she counters by saying, "Look, it's cool. You've got Avengers and space aliens and Baron Zemo and that acrobat guy with the big mustache and stuff. But we've got poisoned water, street crime, inequalities of every kind. And as you just saw, the more than occasional crooked cop." No, that was a caricature, baby. That's not a real person. And then Steve says, "But what about these people who are after you? They want to murder you all." She says, "Don't get me wrong. The captains believe in you. I do too, but we can't walk away from those we protect, not for a second. So she takes off. She's like, thanks for the save. And if you see Aaron again, say hi for me. He's a good kid. So, of course, she's just strong, independent woman, don't need no man. So she takes off walking into the darkness and shit. And then from there, they take off, and he's like, Steve's telling him, she's got a point, Sam. And he tells the cops, like, thanks for the help back there, fellas. But they say, sheriff still wants to talk to you. He's like, nope, we're busy. So he's just going to openly flout any type of, like, authority at this point. And then Sam says, tonight is going to bring heat on us. Doesn't matter how true blue cap we are. But Steve says, something tells me this wild goose chase across the country is going to be educational. So we go from there over to the figures that we've been dealing with this whole time, and we finally find out who they are. The guy is Speed Demon, which would explain why he's so damn fast. Speed Demon is like he's the speedster from the Squadron Sinister in this like version, I'm pretty sure. And then he's like basically Marvel's ripoff of DC's Flash, obviously. And then we have with her Cynthia Schmidt. So, daughter of the Red Skull. And that's where we get, and that's why he said, she has a Jerry accent, German accent, because Red Skull is her father. So, makes sense, right? But anyway, we get into the backup story for Nichelle. And I got to be honest with you. Before we get into it, yes, I did read this prior. No, I do not remember it. And no, it was not just because of the alcohol. But anyway, we start out and she's like, well, this sucks. Thanks for the jailbreak, captains, but what now? Can't possibly go back home. That's the first place they would look. I just need to lie low and regroup. So we see like where the cops were looking for her, but she ditches her phone or whatever and like takes off. But then she hears a scream and starts going towards it, and then we can see the very loud audible bang, and then she comes to the rescue, I guess, and we go inside and we see one guy saying to the other, Taylor, what are you doing? You brought a gun? He says, relax, I'm not going to use it. Well, we already heard like the loud bang, so you must have used it at least once already. Not like on a person, but you did fire it. But anyway, she's saying, Taylor and Charles? What the hell are those two doing? Looks like they've graduated from harassing people at protests to armed robbery. You'd think a cop's son would know better. I'm disappointed, but honestly not surprised. Is it a robbery or is it burglary? Okay, no, yeah, there are people there. So yeah, I guess it is technically robbery, yeah. And then she goes running in. She's like, this was a very bad idea. Almost as bad as that sit-in I organized inside the mayor's office last year. Always bring extra water and snacks. Learned that the hard way. And then she says, I'm about to be a very thirsty and dead domestic terrorist slash fugitive. So she goes walking in and she's like getting ready to, I guess, attack them. But then we see where they're talking and he's like, what's the plan here, dude? And the other one's like, plan? We're just having fun and celebrating the capture of that little terrorist. Aren't you having a good time, everybody? This part of town is a lot nicer without that masked chick. So yeah, we're celebrating the capture of a terrorist by becoming terrorists. Anyway, she comes in and she's like, I broke out. I'm a masked fugitive chick now. So they're looking at her, they're like, Nichelle? And she says, Charles? But then she goes in like for the sweep kick or whatever the hell. And then she starts like fighting with them. None of this is terribly interesting. She manages to like take them down with what? A frying pan or some shit. And then the cops show up. So she takes off again because if you'll remember, as they have pointed out multiple times, she's a fugitive from the law. So she takes off running. And then the cop is trying to tell her like, you have nowhere to go. And she's like, I know, but not really. Because then she just climbs over the damn fence and shit. And the whole time we're getting all of this like bisexual lighting, of course, because there are neon lights outside. And as you know, I have no problem with neon lights whatsoever. But I mean, the fact that they had to throw that in here, like, all right. So she jumps over the fence and then the cop is telling her, like, you can't just attack a cop's son and get away with it because one of them is a cop's son. And then she says, go catch the real bad guys that I left behind for you. But he says, those people you saved, they called us about you. They hate you, right? All units, suspect is headed south. But then all of a sudden she gets pulled aside by this dude who like takes her to this, I guess, church or whatever to like bandage her up and shit. And then he does that, introduces himself and says, he like says his name is Benjamin. This is an abandoned church. Now you answer my questions. So she's like, okay, detective dude, this town is my home. Where am I supposed to go? But he says, we don't need vigilantes. We needed you in the streets, fighting for us like you used to. But she's like, I never stopped fighting. The work we did, the protesting, petitions, drawing attention to our water supply being polluted, that got us clean water. And he's like, so why the cosplay? So she says, when I was a college athlete, all I had to worry about was gymnastics and grades, hit the gym during the day and library at night. I'm kind of doing the same thing here. We organize, march, and force lawmakers to do right by us. But after hours, we are unprotected, and nobody cares if we go missing or have things taken from us. We cannot do the work and worry about our survival. Nobody was coming to save us. Well, that's what happens when you keep putting all of this time and effort into a broken system that doesn't actually care about you and never really will. It only serves to benefit the people who are actually in power. But if you don't understand that yet, it's probably because you're still a child. That's okay. Someday you may hopefully understand it. Anyway, she goes on, or he says, like, someone else comes in. Joan? Yes, this person is named Joan. Comes walking in. And it's like, you're all right or whatever. And then says, I'm your big sister. I'll always find you. That's who it is, her sister. And she says, besides, Coach had her students keep an eye out for you in the city. So apparently they have this coach who was also trying to, like, help out with this as well. And then they do this part where they're literally going to show her like all of these different like testimonials from people who are saying like, oh yeah, she's great, she's the bestest, ever since she came around into the neighborhood, like my life has improved so much and all of that shit. So we have that moment, she's breaking out into tears, and then she gets a message from Aaron who texts her and says, some traveling trouble coming your way, Cap. So she says, suiting up, send deets. And that's where we leave off with her, where she's jumping over the moon and shit. And it says, I'm Nichelle Wright, activist and former athlete. Don't believe the fugitive hype. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I was born, and this is where I will be of service. There are no alien invasions or huge explosions, but there is work to be done. I am a symbol in an ever-changing world. I'm creating a symbol for my America and my neighborhood. Well, it'd be really nice if you just fought for America and, people. But apparently you're fighting for your America, whatever the hell that means. Anyway, that's where we leave off with that particular issue, thank God. Like, I can't with this whole storyline. This one was, like, I guess, slightly less stupid than the first one with the gay boy, but that's not saying very much, because that one was just all the way retarded. So that's why I'm like, I mean, you can't really get, even a slight improvement to that is still not a good book. But anyway, that's what we had from this second issue. So yeah, if you have read this, do feel free to let me know what you thought about it. And yeah, just, I mean, I don't have nothing else to say. What else can I say that I didn't already say whilst I was reviewing the bitch? But anyway, yeah, let me know if you're keeping up with it down in the comments below, what you thought of either the book or this video. I don't care at this point. And if you liked this video, then definitely like the video, subscribe, make sure you are subscribed, and sharing this video and my channel just in general with whoever. Let's see how many people I can get to subscribe. I finally hit over 100, so that's cool. But anyway, that's going to do it for me here. So if you guys are done here, then go read a book. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.